All right. Again, my name is Tarek. I'm an alcoholic. It's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today. It's somebody I've known now. It's pretty, I don't know if we crossed paths at the beginning of the pandemic because of Zoom, or maybe a couple years into it, but, he and we share a lot of friends in recovery. And, it's one of the blessings that the pandemic delivered to us was the Zoom platform and getting to know all these people from all over the world. And I'm telling you guys, man, when you have to speak somewhere and you can sort of just throw on a top and you can stay in your shorts, you don't have to get on a plane and you don't have to drive anywhere and you can go give a talk in another countries. It's pretty cool. I've enjoyed being a part of that, and that's how I know Young. And I have a lot of respect for this man, and I've wanted to hear him give talks. And guys, we haven't had speakers on this Sunday call since 2023. We sort of took time away from it and just focused on us doing the meeting. But this year I'm going back to having speakers. And when I made my list for this year, Young was on the top of the list. And so he's going to give us a talk today. And so let's welcome Young to our call. Young, about 45 minutes, sir. Is that cool? All right, brother. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tarek. Thank you for your gracious invite. Hi, everyone. My name's Young. I'm a recovered drug addict. I'm also an alcoholic, depending on where I am, but I identify as those two things. And it was wonderful just sitting, listening, because Tarek's someone I really look up to. His walk and his demonstration. And so when he mentioned he has a Sponsee family meeting, over 2 years ago now, and also Ralph, someone I speak to, I thought, wow, that would be an amazing thing to do. And so over 2 years ago, I started a Sponsee family meeting, which we had one this morning, and we had a sponsor and their Sponsee speaking. And it's just been a wonderful thing for those guys to connect with each other, as I'm sure you guys do at conventions. They're setting up meetings, they're sponsoring, they're doing all these amazing things. So thank you for inspiring me on that, Tarek. When I sat and what came to me to speak today was on steps 10 and 11. So just a very kind of quick war story, I guess, if you want to call it that, what led me here. And as I heard quite a lot of people saying I'm a heroin addict, and I just wanted to cheer. Yay! We're a dying breed. I was on heroin for over 20 years. I picked up at 19 and I didn't stop till 43, and I was on methadone for 15 years. Also an alcoholic, also a crack fiend, prescription drugs. They were the things that brought me to my knees. And as I was sat here, what kept on going through my mind was that those words from We Agnostics, something like, to die an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. On paper, it should be such an easy alternative to face. I'm dying from this illness. It's obvious I'm dying from this illness. I know I can't pick up the first one. I know I can't stay away from the first one, although each time I come out of a treatment centre, psychiatric unit, rehab, institution, my mind always convinces me I can stay away from it. I see people around me dying. The first person to die in my apartment, I was 17 years old. So the warnings, the ominous warnings that Bill talked about, I started nodding my head when I read that chapter the first time. So why is it such a difficult alternative to face? And how does this relate to the 10th step? It's about this mind. The persistence of the illusion of my agnosticism is astonishing. The persistence of the illusion that I'm not enough is astonishing. The persistence of the illusion of fear that is not real, that just keeps on building in my mind is astonishing. And so to die an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis of life are not easy because of my ego that rebuilds so quickly. This is just how I'm looking at it today. To die an alcoholic death or to live on this spiritual basis that I don't know what it means when I'm new in the rooms. It takes me a while to thaw out. My mind keeps telling me I don't really need to do that. There's a reading in CA, in the UK at least, that says, I didn't come in looking for God. I didn't come in looking for God. I just wanted to stop this terrifying drug addict lifestyle that I'm dying. I wanted to stop this relapse, because my story is a story of being in the rooms for 10 years without being in the program. I'd come in the rooms, I'd go out the rooms. I'd do that in and out, shake it all about thing. And so when you guys talked about God, I would shudder. My old belief systems, my prejudices, all those things it touches on in We Agnostics, that was me through and through. And when you talked about the steps, I like the fellowship part of it. I like going out for coffee. I like taking your money. I like taking your cigarettes, all that stuff. But the persistence of the strength of my ego, my mind, my agnosticism, it doesn't like light. It wants to push it away. The darkness inside me was so profound, and in that lifestyle for so long. When I look, this is how I see it as I look back. Because you were holding out your hand for so long, it was only when something was cracked open in me enough that I was drawn towards you. One of the amazing things that's happened to me, and I will get into the 10th step and the 11th step, is my son. He made a call one day to me and said, I want to kill myself, Dad. I'm addicted to drugs. And I thought, how have I missed this? I'm out here helping other drug addicts and alcoholics, and I've missed the thing right in front of me, my own son. And in that moment, I had a very strong step one experience of utter powerlessness, knowing I can't do anything for my son to fix him. But the miracle is, made some calls to some guys from Cocaine Anonymous. They come in like the spiritual A-team van, picked him up, and he just got into this stuff. Why am I telling this story? I don't even know. Because we come from very different paths, me and my son. His grandfather is a priest, and his grandmother was a female deacon. And he told me a story that they used to pray together. And so he had these spiritual breadcrumbs within him. And when he told me that story, I remembered each treatment centre. For some reason, I always phoned his grandmother up, 558727. I don't even know. It just came into my mind. You know, the spiritual breadcrumbs, God, spirit, light, something was trying to help me all along, giving me a nudge, saying, are you ready yet, young? And each time she would always say this to me, I'm always praying for you, young. I'll never give up on you, young. This is a woman who'd fly to Peru and build schools, and she dedicated her life to helping others. She showed me what living a life filled with spirit looked like before I even knew it. Because, you know, that bit in We Agnostics that says something like, we never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. I used to ridicule people that lived this life. I used to look at her. This is me, selling my possessions, out there robbing, stealing, cheating. And I'm looking at this woman and I'm thinking, you're wasting your life. You're just wasting your life helping others. But she was showing me. And I know I'm jumping around a little bit. It's kind of what I do, man. When I think back, when I came out of that last treatment centre, I was placed in another treatment centre. I'd come out of a psychiatric unit, and something very profound happened to me in there. I fell on my knees and I was crying. And this lady come up to me and knelt beside me, and she held my hand. And she put this gold angel in my hand, and she looked at me and she said, child, it's going to be okay. I didn't realise the significance of that moment until years later. What I believe today, the goodness and love in her heart penetrated mine and gave me enough strength and direction to make it into a treatment centre which was hours away. I've got no idea how I made it there when everything in my mind was crying out for another hit or a drink or something to take me out of me. And why I talk about this relating to the 10th and 11th step, these spiritual steps where this juice really happens, where I continue to grow along spiritual lines, where I can see that I don't know, where I start to feel and understand and live a life that is about me just being a student on this path and about me helping others. It's because all these people in my past were examples of living in 10th and 11th steps without saying it, perhaps. And when I came out of that treatment centre, and it was amazing actually, because again, I was being nudged all the way. I asked to go somewhere else, but I ended up in one that was started by a student of Joe from Joe and Charlie, and all they did in there was big book. And so in there, I'm so broken. When you're talking about God, I stop arguing. When you're talking about a spiritual life, I stop arguing. I'm so broken, and thank God for my brokenness to this day. Thank God for the terrible childhood and the beatings and the torture, because that's where I come from. Didn't make me an alcoholic or a drug addict. It made me very angry. It made me have a frown on my face for years and years. And I used to blame everyone for me. And so, of course, when I pick up a drug or a drink, I get that sense of ease and comfort. And my sister said to me, she reminded me how broken I was recently. She said, when you were 16, you used to say, I hate being sober. And she said, remember when Mum got rid of your dog? You stopped talking for a week and you stopped eating for a week. And when I think about that moment, because I'm free from my past today, I'm not a victim of my past. I think about the 11th step when I go inward. I think about the pause and my prayer and my meditation. And perhaps that's what I was doing when I was a little child, scared, felt unloved, felt unworthy. I used to just go inward when there was nowhere else to go. That page 55 thing, that deep down in every man, woman and child is the fundamental idea of God or goodness or peace or something different from this material world that I'm born into. And so perhaps to die an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis of life, perhaps it's so difficult for me because I'm not born into a spiritual world. I'm born into a material world where I'm taught that the way to happiness is through things and money and stuff. And if I don't get that, I'm a loser, and that I need those things to be okay. And so to unplug from that, well, it continues today. But it's certainly been a process unplugging from all my old belief systems. I love that lay aside prayer. Lay aside everything I think I know, because I've built so many barriers around me because of circumstance, because of environment, because I've been asleep. And so what happened to me through this process and this continued process, each time I go through the steps with a different teacher, I realise how asleep I am. But the first time, it felt like I was waking up from 100-year slumber. It felt uncomfortable. It felt awkward. So I go through this process from 4 to 9, and my ego is exposed to me. It's almost like my disease. It's almost like this virus that is part of me. And I start trying to unplug, but then I realise that I can't do this myself. And I love the word, well, the first part of the 10th step promises, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone. And then like that little dash, like an afterthought, even alcohol, even heroin, even cocaine. And someone said to me, imagine if you cease fighting anything or anyone. How would your life feel, young? But of course, my ego rebuilds, and I have to continue. I love that word, to continue to watch. When I'm talking about the 10th step, I often refer to it as the Bruce Lee step, right? Bruce Lee step. Bruce Lee, one of my greatest teachers, because this is what I've realised, or my experience as I walk this path very imperfectly, making mistakes, being human, agnosticism coming in all the time. And, because my self-will seems to oppose the will of God. It seems to want to argue with reality. There just seems to be this constant ebb and flow within me. My mind doesn't seem to know what's good for it. It seems to be attracted to the lower side of life, the lower power, the Like, like Stranger Things from Netflix, the Upside Down. That's what my mind seems to be, wants to go back into the upside down, where I'm part of the world, but I'm not part of the world. I can't seem to plug in. I can't seem to quite connect. I know there's something more than what I've got, but I can't seem to connect to it. That's where I was going, the Bruce Lee step. I was talking about, I don't know, some of my spiritual teachers. Some of them seem quite obvious, but some of them come unexpectedly, like Bruce Lee, like Sesame Street, like The Muppet Show. I was watching The Muppet Show Christmas Carol. Oh, man, it's almost like I started having a spiritual awakening in that moment. Why am I even saying that? Watch. Yeah, that's why. Watch. That watch, that watch, not just for resentments and selfishness, watching for the spiritual breadcrumbs, young. They are laid at my feet, but the problem is I'm asleep most of the time. So why I call it the Bruce Lee step? In one of his films, Bruce Lee is fighting with a new kid, like a newcomer, this new student. And they finish the sparring. And in martial arts, when you bow, you look at your opponent. But the newcomer doesn't know this. So he bows like this. And Bruce goes, ah! And he says, never take your eye off your opponent. That's what I think about step 10. I've met the opponent and it's me. The persistence of the illusion of myself is astonishing. Am I prepared to die to self? Never take your eye off your opponent. And Bruce Lee also talks about the best technique is having no technique. And this is where this doesn't make sense to me, this stuff. Where when it comes out, I've got to stop trying. What does that even mean? What came to me in meditation a couple of months ago, which is stuck, is I don't know what I'm doing. It's very freeing to not know. It's so freeing. It feels, for me anyway, it feels freeing. I don't know what I'm doing. But I feel this first. And I can't put it into words. I used to have a great thirst for drugs and alcohol for decades. It's been replaced with this thirst for something different. God, spirit, power. I don't have words for it. When I say to new guys, what is God? And I just say it's a 3-letter word that I use to try and describe the undescribable. I have a knowing inside my soul today that I've never had before. And so this beautiful step 10 that keeps this channel, make me a channel of thy peace. Make me a channel, because else I'm blocked. If I cannot see me, I'm walking around asleep again. Watch. It's so simple, isn't it? Those few lines in the big book, the step 10 instructions. Watch. What am I watching for, man? How do I know if I'm in these defects of character, selfish? My body tells me. My fists are clenched. I've lost my sense of ease and comfort. Something. If I'm awake, it's my body tells me when I'm spiritually out of alignment. When there's a disturbance in the force. Watch. How awake am I? Do I know what's been going around in my mind for the last 20 minutes? Or have I been asleep believing I'm awake? Watch, ask, because by now I'm going to God. It's become a habit. And then that disgust thing, this is why I say to the new guys I work with, start ringing people at least 3 times a day, because just get into that habit, that spiritual habit of picking up that telephone, because sometimes that's all I can do. And what else it say? Discuss, amends, and it's got this quickly, immediate, bang, 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 bang. Turn my attention to someone I can help. I'll give you an experience of my step 10 a couple of days ago. My youngest children, their mother, I broke her heart. I remember when she walked into the family home, because I used to have things, right? I used to be a music producer. I used to fly around the world DJing, blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, I was a heroin addict and an alcoholic, so I ended up on the streets selling heroin and crack cocaine and doing what we kind of do when we're on the streets. But I used to have a big house, cars, all that stuff. She didn't know what I was. She just thought I was a DJ, I did some drugs and blah. She didn't know the extent. And I still remember the scream and the yell in her voice. You know, that noise of like a wounded animal? When she walked down the stairs after she'd been bathing the kids on a Sunday night and walked into the kitchen and saw the man she loved taking heroin. I still remember it. I'm sharing that with you because it will give you a bit of context. So a couple of days before, last week, she said to my children, one of my children, because he's like 14, so he's getting to that difficult age. If anyone's got teenagers, I'm sure they're not difficult like mine can be. She said, if you don't stop misbehaving, I'm going to walk out of this door like your father did. And I was filled with fear. I was watching fear that my kids believe that their dad left them, that they're not good enough, that, you know, all the things that I felt as a kid. And so a few days after that, and I'd done a step 10 around that, and I prayed, and I'd done all the stuff that I do. She sent me a text out of nowhere saying some really unkind things to me. And she said, you're an embarrassment. All you do is hang around with drug addicts and alcoholics. You're an embarrassment. Oh. I was literally I wrote the text out to send it back to say, I just start praying, man. I'm literally, my finger was hovering over the button. I'm saying, God, please help me. I don't know what to do, please. And I just kept on praying. And then suddenly I realized it's time to do some step work. And it had gone. At the end of that step work session, I started to have, I won't say a lot because that would be a lie, a little bit of compassion for that woman. She's been there when I wasn't there. She's going through her own stuff. She doesn't have a 12-step program. She doesn't have people like I have that I can phone and she doesn't have that. So I didn't reply and I felt peace again. So sometimes, and then I did discuss it. I'll give you another example. There was a lady where I live and I come back from work and I was really tired and I walked up and I've never seen her before. And she said, you need to move your bins now, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you say you need to, that's not how I want to be spoke to. And this is an elderly lady. I've been praying a lot that day. I've been meditating. I've been doing all the things I'm doing. And yet I responded to her, I'll do it when I feel like doing it. That's someone's grandmother. That's someone I should have respect for because they've lived on this planet a lot longer than I have. But in that moment, I wasn't watching. I'm in the bondage of self. I need to be right. I need to show her that she's wrong. How dare you speak to me like that? And as I walked, I could hear her shouting. She was upset. I'd upset another, having trouble with personal relationships. And I went upstairs and I felt like someone had put a knife in me again. I felt this pain in me. And I said, God, please help me. And my ego did not want to go down there and apologize and make amends, but that's exactly what I did. And then I discussed it with someone because I need to out my ego. And then I turn I just do these things. I've got into this habit over these years of doing this stuff. So at first, it was kind of quite mechanical. I'm just learning the ropes. Not that I'm any expert because I've only been on this path 7 years. But then it becomes it seeps into my soul, this way of life. Making mistakes like I did, like not responding well to that old lady, but feeling the pain, it become objectionable to me. How am I doing for time, Tarek? I forgot to keep my time, man.
You got 20 minutes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Where was I? So this simple but really effective practice keeps me open for when I go to God. Keeps this, I don't know if it's even the right word, like right sizing, this alignment. Keeps me in alignment with what? With reality. I loved what I heard the other day of a man. And he said, what's God's will? Anything that's happening. Life's unfolding. Can I be part of the unfolding? Can I be part of the river? Or am I opposing the river? Because the river's always flowing. Whether I can get with it or not depends on if I'm in control. Or I believe I'm in control. Because I love that. I love this phrase, relax. Everything is out of control. And so these simple practices, and I love how the 10th step promises, for any new guys on this call, it blew my mind when you read these 10th step promises and you said the problem can be removed. You can be in this place of neutrality. And relating to this step 10 practice, am I in a state of neutrality towards external events? Sometimes, sometimes not. Because I'm a perfectly imperfect human being. The persistence of my agnosticism is absolutely astonishing. And I love, remember I'm dealing with heroin, alcohol, crack, cunning, baffling, powerful. But I'm dealing with my ego, my agnosticism, cunning, baffling, powerful. And it seems these barriers around between me and God that seem to come down one brick at a time. So the sunlight can come out and the sunlight can come in. But each time I'm resentful, I seem to put another brick up. And it seems to be this constant ebb and flow. And so for me, step 10 and 11 are kind of combinations. They flow into each other. What does step 11 say? I can't even remember. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. But also step 10, I believe, improves my conscious contact with God. Kind of wakes me up to me. Wakes me up to when I'm arguing with reality. So they kind of work. And what does it say? Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than us are using it constantly. When I was new in and I was attracted to these light givers. There's one lady who I love dearly. She's 75 years old, been on the path a long time, and everyone told me to stay away from her. Everyone told me she was a mad God lady. And I remember the first time I said, Sandra, will you go for a coffee with me? Even when the words come out, my head said, what have you done? It was fighting against this light. And after the coffee, I said, can I go for a walk with you one day? And my head's going, no. And I used to just ask her questions and she'd tell me stories from the Bible, DeMello, all these things that I didn't understand what she was talking about. And I talked to her the other day and I said, Sandra, I don't think you realise what a huge impact you've had on me. You were like planting seeds. Sometimes in meditation, a talk that Sandra had on me and those walks will come into my mind and I'll have this, I'll understand what she meant like 5-6 years later. I'm a slow learner. And one day when I'm walking with Sandra and I said, how do you pray? And she looked at me. And this is what I've realised on my short time on this path. My best teachers seem to just come out with just simple words that say 1,000 words. It would take me 1,000 words to say. They say it in 2. She said, Young, every breath is a prayer. What? What do you mean? I understand. She's so awake. Every breath, she's like, wow, the Spirit, life, love, God. Every breath, every meditation, every movement, every feeling. I'm not there yet. But it blew me away. And I thought to that, better men than us are using it constantly. Being able to see the beauty of this moment that is absolutely perfect if I'm awake to it. And then it says it works if we have the proper attitude and work it. I was pondering on that. What's the proper attitude? Maybe it's the one where I stop trying so hard. Maybe it's to have no attitude. Maybe going back to Bruce Lee, it's to have no technique. My best, is that even the right word to say? I think For a while, my prayers were quite rigid, and I realized that it was me trying. And so I just say whatever comes into my heart and my soul in that moment. And sometimes it's thank you. And that's one of my most powerful prayers that I feel. Another prayer Sandra said to me. She said, would you like to know what my favourite prayer is, Young? And I said, yes. I wanted to know everything from this woman. I knew she was a special woman. She is a special woman. She said it was taught to me by some nuns. And she looked at me and she said, whatever. And that's her favourite prayer, whatever. Just being able to accept, going from that. I was that when I come in. I wasn't no longer fighting. I was fighting everything and anyone. And then, like that. Like a flower, I guess, blossoming. Imperfectly, absolutely. My mind wants to drag me away all the time. I want to respond. I want to react. But thank God for these practices that have slowed my mind down. And when I came into the rooms after 2 psychiatric visits, my mind was a very, very busy and absolutely, what's that thing in a book? Outright mental defective? Absolutely. When I read that, I thought, I'm in the right place here. It's not today. Most of the time. And I love those practices in the step 11. And I've not really even spoke a lot about step 11. The pause. Inside the pause, I'm safe and protected. Inside the pause, something incredible happens. Sometimes my mind or something beyond takes me somewhere I don't understand in the pause or in meditation. A couple of weeks ago, I was in meditation and I went somewhere. But as soon as my mind realised, I was gone again. And I was trying to get back there and I couldn't. I can't bring it into words. I can't. To pause, for me, it says to pause when agitated or doubtful. Over the last several years, I've just got into the habit of just pausing a lot throughout my day. But it did start, these practices, the chopping wood, carrying water. I'm doing a practice at the moment called A Course in Miracles. And it's a daily lesson each day. I know this isn't an official meeting, so I think I can talk about stuff like this, right? And I do it in the morning. I've incorporated it into my morning practice, into my morning devotion and my quiet time. And then I've got another friend who's doing it, and she said, I don't get it, man. And I said, nor do I at the moment. But I just keep doing those things until I get there. My mind is wanting to fight against it again. It's wanting to oppose it. It doesn't understand what's good for it. It only understands what's bad for it. Anyway, where was I? The pause. And in Bill's story, very similar to the pause, it says, we sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength. And then it says something else, which I can't remember. Before I've started to practice these things, it does not feel natural for me to sit quietly when I'm in doubt. That's the opposite. It doesn't come natural for me to pause. When I'm agitated, I'm going to tell you I'm agitated and I'm going to go at it. I'm going to try and fix and control and I'm going to worry and my mind takes me into that place. It's almost in the same way. If we went cold water swimming, if I'm not trained, if I'm not in the practice, I would jump in and my body would react like that. But if I'm trained, I would breathe into it. And so I understand today that this sacred thing called breath, the very first thing that I do before entering this world and the very last thing I'm going to do before I leave it. But often we're not taught how to breathe properly. But when I start being aware of this sacred thing that's keeping me alive, this spirit inside, I slow down. I can get out of this. My mind stops becoming my master most of the time, and I become the watcher, going back to step 10. So I started becoming really thirsty for this path. And my thirst and my willingness hasn't left me so far through the grace of God. Because it took me a long time to get into these rooms. I was so broken, man. I saw you guys had an answer. You know, my sponsor, Donna, that bit in How It Works where it says something like, if you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, she said, what is the it? I thought it was sobriety. She said, no. It's a life led by spirit and God and a life of service. And something attracted me to that. Because I either need a lot of heroin or alcohol, crack cocaine, or a lot of God. And so I feel like I've just begun on this path. I feel like the door's just been opened. You know, where it says be quick to see where religious people are right. My mind has been open to religious people, to others who walk this path who are not alcoholics or drug addicts. You know, to watch out for these spiritual breadcrumbs that are always laid at my feet. And where it says, I constantly remind myself I am no longer running the show. How does that jump into step 10? By watching, because my mind does want to run the show. It wants to, I don't even know if want to is the right word. Maybe its natural disposition is to criticize, compare, compete. It wants to separate me from you, and I am you. We all come from one. We're just a few billions of years down the line. The illusion is that I am not one with you and that I'm separate, and that's why I feel so much pain and agitation in this world, believing that I'm separate from you. How do I know I am a part of you? Because when I'm nasty to you, when I'm cruel, I feel disturbed. But when I'm kind, I've never gone to sleep, or I've never lay awake at night because I've been too kind or too helpful. Because if I'm being kind to you, I'm being kind to myself and my soul, and something grows inside me when I see it growing inside you. This is a great deal, man. And all I come in for is to stop drinking and drugging. And suddenly I discover, after 10 years being in and out of the room so asleep, that this deal is about this relationship with his power and about love. And you know, the word sanity comes from the Latin word sanitas, meaning whole. I've been restored to wholeness, to sanity. There was always something not quite right. And I filled it with drugs and alcohol, women, gambling, blah, blah, blah. I fill it with God, and I fill it with this beautiful program and these steps 10 and 11 that, you know, I thought when I first come in, first of all, I think I've got a couple of minutes, right, Tarek? I was impatient, and I still can be impatient, man. Of course, I'm full of defects of character. Thank God I'm full of defects of character, right? It keeps me seeking. I was like, when am I going to have a spiritual awakening? Because I understood this is what's required, this shift, this transformation. When am I going to have it? And people said, just keep doing this stuff, man. And one day I'm in the treatment centre, and it's by the sea. And we go for a walk up this cliff top. And it's me and this kid. And the sun's out, and the birds are flying, and I can see the sun glistening on the ocean. And you know that feeling when you're a few months sober and I'm feeling alive again, man. And I'm thinking, here we go. I'm having it. I'm having a spiritual awakening. And I look over to this guy, and he goes, it'd be good to smoke crack here, wouldn't it? It wasn't a spiritual awakening, but maybe it was. Who knows? Because I don't know the experience when I'm going through the experience. I don't, man. But what I was going to say, and I'll end it on this, is that I thought this spiritual experience was going to be a one-time deal. But through these practices, through this seeking, through this, you know, this cultivating this relationship with God through prayer and meditation and other spiritual practices that I do, I keep on changing, man. Like a lot. My heart has really softened. I came into you like a wounded animal, like a feral kid. And I've kind of grown up into a man. I'm a man now, but with childlike eyes. And I can't believe it to this day. I really can't. I'm beyond grateful to be alive today. And it's such a privilege to walk with you guys, and it's a real privilege to be here. Tarek, thank you so much, brother. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Woo!
Woo! Let's unmute and give him a hand and thank him for joining us this morning, guys. I mean, oh my God.
Thanks, Young. Young,
Yeah.
that was a powerful
Come on,
talk,
Young.
man. That was great.
Young.
That was great.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Beautiful talk, bro. We got a few minutes. Anybody want to share? Wanted to share some thoughts? Have a question for Young? Now's the time. Raise your hand. He gave us about 7 minutes of time to address that. Anybody?
I just want to say I'm grateful to be part of this family, man. It blows my mind, but thank you very much, y'all.
Oh, JB. Thank you, bro. Thank you, brother. George, come on here and say some words for us, brother.
Hi, Young. Good seeing you, bro. Yeah, that was beautiful. It was really fire, man. Especially the bit about how we're all connected. I got nothing to share back, but it's good to hear your wisdom. I maybe got a personal question because you didn't touch much on step 11 and meditation. I just want to know, what was your personal journey? Do you have any tips on meditation? Like for me, I started off with a car map, and I was doing that daily. And then one of my teachers, my latest sponsor, said you got to do at least 15 minutes more and best in silence. And I did that. And to be honest, I'm not the most consistent meditator. I'll go off the path and I forget. And then when I try to get back on 15 minutes, it's very tough. So I have this little 5-minute guided meditation by Wayne Dyer, which I always go back to when I'm an off course, and it gets me back in the rhythm of things.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, George. It's one of the things that I've always done. Like, I've never not done meditation. There's not been one day in this last 7 years. But at the beginning, my mind was all over, and it was just staring at a cloud for a minute. It was walking in a forest for a minute. But today, how does it look today? I do about 20 minutes in the morning, sometimes silent. Sometimes I go to the sea and I just stare at the waves. Every afternoon at work, they let me do it. I do the same, Muji, a guided one. I just do the same one. I've done that for quite a few years, and I do a little bit in the evenings. But it's just something I've never not do. It's been a slow burner. You know what I mean? When someone said right at the beginning, when I was a newcomer, right, get into some prayer meditation, and I said I can't do it, and they said it's like riding a bike, Young. When you first do it, you can't. And so I started off a minute for maybe 2 weeks, and then after that 2 minutes, and it was kind of just like that, just like kind of building it up a little bit. Thanks, George. Good to see you, man.
Great question, George. Thank you, Young. Who else wants to share some thoughts? Just want to have a question. I'm going to call on somebody here.
I just want to say, I mean, that the talk was just so impactful for me this morning. A lot of the different things you said, a lot of the we're obviously quite different people. Young, you and I. I'm an old fat boy from Alabama. You talk in a way that I could listen to you talk all day, man. But dude, the way you talked about, your pause, that to me, that pause saved my life multiple times, and for a very similar reason. I had really hurt and angered people, and they lashed out at me hard the first few years, and that pause has shifted things in a beautiful way. But when you talked about when you asked her about her prayer, and she said every breath is a prayer. Woo! Well, come on, dude. That's the thing, and and you reminded me this talk really reminded me a lot about how I need to pick up that phone as part of my 10th step and not just sit here and pause myself and breathe myself, because man, I get agitated and doubtful a whole lot every day, and I'm breathing and I'm asking God for help. And then, but thank you so much, man. I love the talk.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Beautiful, Ben. Thank you. Nolan.
Thank you for the talk, Young. I don't have any thoughts, but I did just want to say, it was one of my favorite talks I've ever listened to, I think, because it was like so perfectly disorganized, and it felt like, the thing you said at the end, I've become a man with childlike eyes. Like, it felt the excitement and like the love in your soul came through the computer screen, and it felt like you ever go to somebody's house and their kid wants to show you every toy that they have, and they can't pick one to land on. They're just showing you all the toys. Like, that's what it felt like for me, of just like you have these years of this God consciousness and you couldn't decide what toy to really show. And it was so beautiful. I loved it. It was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nolan. Nick, you got some words for our friend here?
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. It was very captivating, and you articulate your message well. One thing I thought of, that I'd love to ask you is, Nolan, it kind of goes along with what Nolan just said, is, it seems like you have a lot to say. And I noticed in certain parts, it was almost like you were recentering and asking God where to take you next. If that's accurate, I'm curious about kind of how you do that, how you navigate that. If you're speaking to somebody seeking that like immediate intuition on what road to take as far as how you're speaking, what is that like for you?
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, sometimes I'm just aware I'm going off on a tangent, and I'm just asking, like, just that pause, really, I guess, Nick. And sometimes I forget what I'm saying, but I'm trying not to try, if that makes sense. But I do it a lot in the job that I do. I lecture, and often I'll just stop and say, please God, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And sometimes it's the same if I'm speaking here or somewhere. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, awesome question. Dylan, then Karen. And that's going to be it for the questions, guys.
I just want to thank you. I have a bunch of questions that I probably don't have enough time for here. I think my biggest thing is, like, what is your, I don't know how to articulate my question, so I'll get your phone number because I don't want to eat up a bunch of time trying to figure it out. But thank you. You've given me a lot to digest, man.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. That's well said there, man. This is one of the best talks I've heard on steps 10 and 11, Young. No, that's not even gas. I mean, that it was incredible. Kieran.
Nice one. Thank you, Young. It's funny. The last time I went through the steps with Tarek took me through this exercise with step 10 about watch and ask. And there's something I never ended up writing all of the cards out, right? I wrote like 2 or 3 of them, but there's one which I keep in my pocket pretty much all the time, and that was watch. So it's the first time I've heard it being broke down in exactly the same way that I was taught this through Tarek. So I really appreciate that, man. And man, I mean, it's quite funny, right? So obviously I'm Scottish, you're British, right? Now when Andy Murray is winning, right? He's British. When Andy Murray is losing, he's Scottish. But today, man, I'm proud to be British, Young. Thanks, man. It was an absolute pleasure to hear you.
That was awesome.
Thanks, bro.
That was awesome, man. And Young, man, there are so many things I heard. I took almost like a whole page of notes, man. But just slight change in perspective, about what watching is. Like keeping an eye on the opponent, right? the disturbances, watching for disturbances, but then also looking for spiritual breadcrumbs. And what amazes me is when we have spiritual eyes and we begin to understand that life is understood looking in the rear view and then lived going forward. I don't look at it in the past and see events anymore. I see a tapestry being woven by God, and like the little threads are the spiritual breadcrumbs that I see, and how God was taking care of me, bringing it all full circle here. And the whole Bruce Lee reference with just be water, right? When you said like be water, and that's so much, if not all of what the 10 steps about at this stage of the game. And then, what's inside the pause. I mean, that's deep, guys. If we just sit and have a meditation on that and the breath, its connection with the pause, and being children of the moment, right? The spiritual breadcrumbs, and they serve a moment, right? Our intuition, we are serving in every breath we take, and we don't even know it. And that's what I got out of your talk. Like the big book says, we're in the world to play the roles that God assigns. Maybe that's what the 10 step is about. Intuitively knowing, how am I supposed to serve this moment? And that's what I heard. Just pausing. And sometimes the pause, like when you were pausing in the middle of your talk and Nick said that, it's like, it's not even the pause is the prayer. It's like I'm making room for something that's already there, because the mind, you said we were born into the material world and this mind system. And bro, I can go on and on. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that talk. Awesome talk, bro. You got any last words? I know we went over a little bit. You got any last words and we'll get out of here?
Yes, Jess, thank you guys. Thank you. It's it's a privilege to be here, man. Anyone new on this meeting, if what's my sponsor say, if a bozo like you can get it, young. So yeah, just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the invite, Tarek, and thank you everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Awesome. All right, let's have a few moments of silence and then enjoy the rest of the day, gentlemen. Have a great day, everybody.